This is Anjo's damage before she ramps up, and this is Anjo's damage after she ramps up. Welcome back to another Reverse 1999 video, and today we're talking about Anjo's new Euphoria. And to make this easier to follow, we're going to treat this as if Anjo is a brand new character. This Euphoria doesn't redefine Anjo the way Lucy's did, but it does meaningfully change her rotation and team building, enough that you can't just play her the old way and expect optimal results. I'll also lightly touch on Calabona. While she's not Anjo's strongest sub DPS, that's Broom, Calabona is still designed to work specifically with Anjo, with some very specific synergies. Anjo's entire kit revolves around a contract mechanic. When combat starts, you choose one ally for Anjo to contract with. That contract applies different effects to both Anjo and the bonded's character, depending on the target's afflatus. Passively, Anjo and her contracted allies will gain some basic stats, but the effect of this contract goes way beyond. Let's start with the most important part of Anjo Nala's kit, which is her channeling. Anjo's skill 2 puts her into a 7-turn channeling state, and while this effect is active, every action taken by her contracted ally will trigger an additional effect from Anjo based on that ally's afflatus. If the contracted ally is spirit or intellect, Anjo will immediately follow up with her skill 1. If the ally is star or mineral, Anjo will instead trigger an AoE follow-up attack. And if the ally is beast or plant, Anjo will gain an additional moxie from it. Both her skill 1 and the AoE follow-up apply a debuff called Titillated, which reduces the enemy's damage bonus. More importantly though, once Titillated reaches 3 stacks, it converts into Captivated. Captivated stuns the enemy for 1 turn and allows Anjo to steal a portion of their attack while the debuff is still on them. At the end of her channeling, Anjo Nala unleashes a massive AoE attack, which is essentially an enhanced version of the follow-up she performs when contracting a star or mineral character. This AoE deals significantly more damage and directly applies Captivated to all enemies instead of building up titillated stacks. While 7 turns of channeling sound long on paper, there are multiple ways to advance it without just waiting for turns to pass. Anytime her contracted ally takes an action, regardless of afflatus, the channeling immediately progresses by 1 turn. On top of that, using Anjo's skill 2 will also advance the channeling, with higher skill ranks pushing it forward even faster. Anjo's skill 1 also advanced the channeling by 1 turn regardless of the ranks. This includes the one that's triggered by her spirit and intellect contract. Because of that, spirit and intellect partners don't just give Anjo more single target follow-up damage, they also let her use that big AoE finisher much more frequently. Even though Anjo's max moxie is 12, she actually only needs 8 to cast her ultimate. After she uses it, both Anjo and her contracted ally are locked out of actively casting anything else for that turn. Then, at the start of the next turn, the ally loses 15% of their current HP, casts their ultimate, before Anjo chains her own ultimate right after. Anjo's ultimate does solid damage, but it hurts a lot more against enemies with multiple debuffs. It gains extra multipliers for each negative status, and the ultimate itself applies 2 random debuffs. On top of that, the ultimate also gives Anjo a 2-turn buff that massively boosts her damage. While the buff is active, the multiplier on her skill 1 and both versions of her AoE follow-up is increased to 4 times their base values. Yes, 4 times. Once you get through that first ultimate, Anjo's damage ramps up hard, and you generally want to be using her ultimate at least every other turn. And if you're running the right teammates, that's something you won't have to worry about at all. Now, that's just one part of it. Anjo has another ramp-up system that's just as strong, revolving around bonus actions from her contracted ally. Every time that ally performs a bonus action, Anjo will enhance the contract, stacking up to 8 times. Each stack provides additional stat bonuses to both Anjo and her contracted partner, with the exact effect depending on the ally's afflatus. And once that enhancement reaches 8 stacks, the contract becomes awakened, providing additional effects. If the contracted ally is spirit or intellect, Anjo's skill 1 gets an additional damage boost and her channeling is reduced by 1 extra turn. With that, a single action from her contracted ally can reduce her channeling by 3 turns. If the contracted ally is beast or plant, Anjo's ultimate damage is increased to 2.4 times its original value, and it benefits from ultimate might at a 200% rate. If the contracted ally is star or mineral, Anjo's follow-up attack gains excess crit rate to crit damage conversion, along with an additional multiplier that's 2 times of its base damage. allowing it to deal 6 times its original damage when combined with ultimate buff. And finally, regardless of afflatus, Anjo's ultimate no longer counts toward the incantation draw limit and no longer costs an action point. It effectively becomes free to use and even refunds to Moxie afterward. One last passive you need to know for Anjo is that when a contracted ally performs a follow-up attack, Anjo will gain additional Moxie. And if the contracted ally can trigger some follow-up attacks before your next turn begins, Anjo can actually regenerate her ultimate the very next turn. However, if this happens after the cards are already drawn, you can only get Anjo's ultimate to enter your hand if her contract is awakened, since the bonus effect allows it to bypass the incantation draw limit. With the right contractor, it's possible to set up a rotation where Anjo uses her ultimate every single turn. At the moment, there are 2 characters that can achieve this rotation reliably. The first is Ju. With Euphoria, she performs an additional follow-up after every allied action, and her channeling skill further enables extra follow-ups on the following turn. This makes her a very consistent Moxie generator for Anjo. The second option is Calabona. While her Euphoria does not turn her into a top-tier DPS, it significantly increases the number of bonus actions she performs. First, her basic incantations become follow-up attacks by default, which allows it to generate 2 Moxie for Anjo. On top of that, whenever she removes a planet, she triggers an additional follow-up based on the number of planets removed, which grants another Moxie. As a result, a single basic incantation already generates 3 Moxie for Anjo. This interaction becomes even crazier when factoring in her ultimate. Unlike standard ultimate triggered follow-ups, Kala's planet-based follow-ups are counted separately. After using her ultimate, if both planets are present, she will first trigger the ultimate's follow-up, then additionally trigger follow-ups from both skill 1 and skill 2 through her Euphoria passive. This results in 4 follow-up attacks in total, including the ultimate itself. And with this, you will never have a situation where you don't have enough Moxies for Anjo. With that said, there is actually a third option, and it's extremely strong. This setup becomes available in the second half of the patch, the Anjo Broom team. Since Broom has not been released yet, we are not going to evaluate her overall performance here. Instead, we'll focus specifically on what she provides to Anjo in the setup. First, similar to Calabona, she can reliably generate a large amounts of Moxie for Anjo every turn. Outside of the extra Moxie from the Plan B's contract, she will also recharge Anjo through her channeling skill, which can trigger up to 4 follow-up attacks at the end of the turn. In addition to Moxie generation, Broom's Beast Afflatus enables the Beast Plump version of the Awakened contract, allowing Anjo's ultimate to deal 240% of its base damage while also benefiting from double ultimate might scaling. On top of that, Broom provides 40% ultimate might through her buff. This buff effectively becomes permanent, as her own ultimate extends its duration by 1 turn, and it further stacks with ultimate might from the Dynamos array. The only caveat is that the Anjo Broom team does require a bit more rotation management at the beginning of the combat, mainly due to how it interacts with the Dynamo array. I'll go over that in detail in a separate video once Broom is released, so look forward to that. But for now, let's move on to the build section. At the moment, there are essentially 2 team setups, Anjo with Calabona or Ju, and Anjo with Broom. If you're running Anjo with Kala or Ju, Flutter Page will almost always be the 3rd slot. In this setup, you mainly want to stack Incantation Might, followed by Attack and Crit. If you're running Anjo alongside Broom instead, the priorities shift. Damage bonus becomes significantly more valuable alongside Ultimate Might. For Psychubes, your options remain largely the same as any other follow-up character with Channel. You'll either use Flutter Page's signature or Anjo's signature. And if you're running Calabona, you can give Kalaju's signature Psychube. In terms of portrait investment, the value will depend on the team. P1 is the most useful one for Anjo Kala setups, as it emphasizes the follow-up attack, while P3 and P5 is more valuable in Broom teams due to their stronger focus on ultimate damage. Honestly, there's a lot going on with her new team setups, but once you get used to the ramp up and rotation, everything else is pretty straightforward. With that said, what do you think about Anjo's Euphoria? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, this has been SteamBunX. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.